What's going on, guys? Today should be the day we get to start the Mazda. Well, it'll be today for you because it is actually nighttime right now, so I've got to wait till tomorrow when we got some sunlight to actually hit the key for the first time. But since this will all be in the same video, you guys don't have to wait. We've got some new parts in, we've got the spark plugs, and I remembered last time I drove it that the oil pressure gauge was on 0, which is super common on RX7s for that oil pressure switch or sender to go bad. So got a new sender and those plugs. So let's go ahead and get those in and get one step closer to smoking out the neighborhood. All right, guys, so we've got our fresh spark plugs versus our nasty old Rotary killed spark plugs. So Rotaries are kind of goofy since they have 4 spark plugs, even though it only has 2 rotors, because you've got a leading set of spark plugs and a trailing set of spark plugs. And you've got 2 ignition coils, 4 spark plug wires. It's a really goofy setup to make these older ones go. But that's what they take. So we're going to get these plugs in here. All right, guys, now that we've got those plugs tight, like I said, you've got leading plugs and trailing plugs. And the factory plug wires are pretty cool because they're numbered. These were a brand new set from Mazda that you could still get. And they're numbered so you can easily get them to the right spark plugs. Awesome. And now we've got that oil pressure switch, which is a little less conveniently located down here by the oil filter housing. We got the spark plugs in, and we've got that new oil pressure switch in, and I went ahead and threw the fan back on, so we should be ready to fire this thing up. So now that we've got all the dust blowing off this thing and we can actually see through the windows, we're ready to hit that key. But there's one thing I knew I had to wear to harness all of the hoopty power on hopefully firing this thing up. So let's see what happens. Well, guys, as you could see, we got some smoke, but we didn't start. I'm thinking we've probably got fuel issues. This car had originally sat for 13 years in a garage, and the fuel system was my biggest fight on getting this car moving again. Fuel injectors were clogged. The fuel tank was full of nasty old fuel. So I had to pull the fuel injectors, send them out to have them rebuilt, and pulled the tank, worked on cleaning it really well, and then rotaries will flood so bad and so quickly. So that was the next battle after I got the tank cleaned, fresh fuel, the new fuel injectors, everything put back together, is just that initial start. You continually will flood the motor or soak the spark plugs with fuel, and this kind of feels like what I was doing multiple years ago when I got the car. I believe we've got spark because we got some fire, we got it to run slightly as you can see from the video, but the second I touched the throttle, it died and was flooded. I pulled the plugs multiple times, used brake clean to clean off the plugs. I couldn't really tell if it was oil soaked on the spark plugs from all that oil that we put into the motor to get it turning over nicely, or if it was fuel soaked. And the fuel is probably over a year old in the car. So what I did tonight, luckily RX7s, at least this 85, I would think the whole first gen lineup, luckily has a drain plug on the fuel tank. So pulled the drain plug, I've got the tank completely drained, I've got the gas cap off, so hopefully any vapors can evaporate and that tank will be completely empty. I also, at least on the 13B cars, there is a fuel pump connector. It is right here by the airbox. It is a black rubber, it's got a little black rubber boot on it. You can jump the two terminals together with the key on and have the fuel pump run. So since these are a return system, I ran that just to hopefully push any fuel out of the fuel rail and back to the tank. And like I said, have that drain plug out, so the tank should hopefully be completely dry tomorrow. I went ahead and pulled the spark plugs back out again, brake cleaned them off, and am also leaving them out, so hopefully the rotor housings can get some of the fuel vapor out of there, and went ahead and cranked it over with the plugs out to kick any extra fuel and or excess oil out of there. So hopefully maybe tomorrow I will put the drain plug back in the gas tank, put some fresh fuel in. I'm also going to need to pre-mix. On RX7s or rotary engines, it's good to pre-mix your fuel, which is just adding some additional two-stroke or two-cycle oil to your fuel just to help lubricate it. All of these have an oil metering pump which already injects some oil, but if that pump fails, or if you just want that extra added security, it's a good idea to pre-mix your rotary. So we're gonna get some fuel in it, put those plugs back in, and years ago when I got the car and got it running again, it's just a constant battle on that initial start of flooding the spark plugs, pulling the plugs out, cranking the motor to push any excess fuel out of the rotor housings, cleaning your spark plugs, putting them back in, hitting that key again, getting it to run for a few seconds, stalling, being flooded, and just repeatedly pulling the plugs, cleaning them, putting them back in, and finally you'll hopefully get lucky and get it to run, and then once it's running, obviously get it up to temperature. The only possible hitch in this plan is going to be if we've got low compression. This motor was a really strong motor when I put it away 11-12 months ago. It drove into the storage unit, it was great. If for some reason when those rotors hung up in the rotor housings, if we've torn an apex seal or a side seal or something, or damaged a seal, then we're going to be doing bad things. That's the motor's hurt, we're low compression, maybe on one or both rotor housings. But let's hopefully not think about that. When I had the spark plugs out and hand turning that motor, you could put your fingers over the spark plug holes and feel the compression on the compression stroke or turn, pushing air out against your fingers. So we have some compression. I don't have a rotary compression gauge, you can use a normal compression gauge if you pull the Schrader valve out and try to watch the sweeps of the gauge, but I think we've just got fueling issues. So, like I said, we'll get some fuel in it and get the plugs back in, and hopefully next video we will hopefully get it to run. So sorry we didn't get an awesome smoke show, but hopefully next time you guys see this car, it'll be moving. So wish me luck and thanks for watching.